A while ago, I made a video about choosing the right bow size. A lot of the confusion comes from people who are looking at bow charts that recommend a far larger bow than what they're actually buying. This is misleading because these charts refer to the full-size target bows rather than the beginner or hunting bows that people often buy as first bows. Now, a lot of people are worried about what might happen if they use a bow that is apparently too short, and especially the concern about whether or not the limbs will break. I think the best way to explain this is to demonstrate it. Here I've got my 68-inch target recurve, and this is much closer to what I'm meant to use. As someone with a 26-inch draw length, I'm probably best suited for a 66 or 68-inch bow, and obviously I can use it fine. This is a 62-inch bow. This is much closer to the typical lengths of hunting and beginner bows, such as the Samick Sage. Again, I can show that you can use it just fine. This is a PSE Razorback Junior. It's 54 inches, and it's typically used by 13-year-olds as a youth bow. Can I use it? Yes. And here we have a Cartel Into Nature. It's a 48-inch bow, and we give this to 8-year-olds. Can an adult use it? Of course. That's right, the limbs will not snap. You may think if I pull too far back, it'll snap. No, it will not. It will take a load far more than humanly possible to snap the limbs this way, because these limbs are made to take that kind of stress. There is no maximum draw length for a bow like this. You can pull it back 15 inches if you're 8 years old, you can pull it back 32 inches, and the limbs will not break. There are exceptions. There are traditional wooden bows that may have a maximum draw length, and if that's the case, you will normally see that in the product description, but practically all modern bows on the market today do not have a maximum draw length, so you can in fact use a bow that is too short. Now you may be wondering, surely there has to be some kind of problem using a shorter bow, and yes, there are. There are two main problems. The first problem is an effect called stacking. As most of you probably know, when you pull the string back, the limbs are placed under tension. The more you pull back, the more energy is required. In theory, this is a linear relationship. However, there is a point where it suddenly becomes a lot harder to pull back. This is because the angle of the string on the limb tips is so flat that you're basically applying more horizontal force than downward force, which means that you require much more energy to pull the limbs further back. This effect is the stacking effect. Although it feels like you're holding a lot more weight, it's not dangerous. What it does mean though is that it does feel uncomfortable to draw, because you've gone from smooth to, oh, that's really hard. That's what stacking does. Another problem with stacking is that because of this huge variation in the draw force curve, that is because there's so much more power in this 1 inch of extra draw, if you don't draw consistently, there is a much greater variation in arrow velocity, and that means your accuracy on target can be affected. If you're worried about the string coming off the limb tips, don't worry, you require a much longer draw length than humanly possible. The other problem is that you may require a specific anchor in your technique. This is specifically true for target archers, and hence why the bow charts recommend target size bows. The most common anchor point taught to a target archer, especially the one that uses sights, is one that goes under the chin or the jaw. This is what you see in every Olympic archery video. The anchor point is around here. And over here, I actually have two more reference points. I have the string that goes across my lips, and it's touching the tip of my nose. If I'm using a shorter bow, I can't actually get that reference point for a normal head position. I have to tilt my head forward to make that contact, and that will affect the rest of my alignment. This is more obvious on the really short bow. So if I go to full draw, it's nowhere near my nose. So this anchor point will be very difficult with a smaller bow. That said, if you're shooting instinctive or bare bow, then you're probably going to be using a different anchor point. The other popular anchor point that people use is the corner of the mouth. And in this case, even though I can use the chin anchor for the 62-inch bow, if I shoot instinctive, I can use the corner of the mouth just fine. And basically, since you're using the corner of the mouth, the length of the bow doesn't actually matter because your reference point is one finger at the corner of your mouth. Now, this one anchor point may be harder to be consistent with because there might be variations, there's no secondary reference, but if you're shooting instinctive and bare bow, this is basically what you'll be doing. And if you're buying a beginner bow like this, that's basically what you have to do. Another minor point regarding using short bows for big people is that the angle of the string on the fingers may be very sharp, and that results in what's called arrow pinch. The string basically forces your fingers to pinch the nock, and this can be a little uncomfortable. So basically, you can use any size bow. If you're a target archer buying a target bow, then those bow charts are fairly accurate. They offer the best balance between comfort and performance. However, if you're not buying a target bow, you can safely ignore those charts. The bows will not break. That said, as a general rule of thumb, if you're a person with longer arms, you may find it more comfortable to use a longer bow. So for example, if you had a choice between a 62-inch bow and a 66-inch bow, and you've got a 32-inch draw because you're 6'3", then you may find it more comfortable to use a longer bow. But if you didn't have a choice, you can safely use a short bow. Anyway, this is NUSensei. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.